Okay, we will call this meeting to order, agenda priorities meeting for September the 18th. I will have Councillor Wing please read the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. The town of Innisfail acknowledges that we are meeting on Treaty 7 territory, the ancestral and traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Kainai, Piikani, and Siksika, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and Stoney Nakoda First Nation. We acknowledge that this territory is home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3, within the historical Northwest Métis homeland. We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who have lived in and cared for these lands for generations. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. We make this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we reside on.
Okay, thank you. And are there any additions or deletions? No. Could I please have someone make a motion that we adopt the agenda as presented? Councillor Messaros.
I'll make that motion, Mayor Barclay.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? All right, carried. And we will move into 3.1 RFD with CEO Becker on a council emergent resolution.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Hello, Council. Last week, Council gave direction to administration to draft a emergent resolution for Council consideration to come before AM in advance of their conference coming up in a week and a half approximately. So in general terms, before I go into the report, is just looking for Council's feedback, more on the content than the writing, just clarity on what Council is really advocating to AM for onto the government. And so posing the questions, would it be in the form of the 5 areas of the AUC? Is it in relation to the economics of the moratorium, or is it the legislation? What really is Council advocating AM to advocate on your behalf, and other Alberta municipalities? So just posing those questions as I walk through this document. Please interrupt if you have any questions. As the report states, the government issued a regulation. It's titled the Generation Approvals Pause Regulation, which is what we talk about as the Renewable Energy Moratorium. Basically, it forces the AUC to not grant approvals with respect to certain size hydro development or power plants that produce renewable energy. This regulation expires on February 29th, 2024. I did provide there the 5 different areas as per the AUC website on what their directive is. Part of their inquiry is to engage stakeholders, municipalities, and others, and to allow stakeholders to provide inputs on where government should go with the regulation. According to some of the AUC bulletins and communications, the different stakeholders are able to participate in providing feedback into the process by completing online surveys, providing written submissions, providing submissions orally at an in-person session. The AUC will continue to process new and existing applications for renewable energy projects up to the approval stage while they conduct inquiry into renewable energy generation. At this point, we do not know the outcome of that inquiry, what the impact will be to the future of these projects. Will there be a continued delay as the government develops regulations and legislation? We don't know what that story looks like at this point. In developing the resolution for your consideration, I cannot find on a relatively quick research that AM has provided any public notice on how they stand on the moratorium, whereas the RMA has issued a release dated August 24th, ultimately stating that the renewable energy is important to Alberta's future, and they look forward to working with governments, AUC, industry, and other stakeholders to build on the renewable energy sector. They've also engaged legal to help develop some of their recommendations on to the government. Although news articles covering the moratorium often demonstrate 2 sides of an argument, seeing a lot of media coverage in relation to the surprise of the moratorium announcement, I think maybe Council was in that realm of the initial moratorium as it being announced. There's a surprise with the moratorium. I know there's others in similar, but seeing lot of, well, not a lot, but some media coverage in relation to support of the moratorium. On the side of that is there's some documents from Pembina that provides some indication of their going against and how the moratorium is impacting the economics of Alberta. So back on September 1st, Council made the following motion, although it has not been approved by you, and I did make some adjustment outside of the council chambers. So certainly this motion would have to be certainly considered now and into next week as you formally adopt the motion. But as I heard the conversation, the administration drafts an emergent resolution regarding the renewable power moratorium to be presented to council at the September 25th council meeting, which, if approved, will be presented to AEM administration by noon on September 26th. So saying that to be today, get your feedback over the course of this week into Thursday, develop emergent resolution draft that come to you in your council agenda. You can do adjustments to it accordingly, and then it'll be submitted to AM by noon on Tuesday with your resolution, and then we prepare to hear back from AM Executive Committee on if this resolution would be advanced, and we would develop our all our other administrative components for this process. So just on the process itself, emergent resolution is a little bit more tighter on the process, whereas if we met the initial deadline, I think it was it May? I can't remember the date of the initial resolution submission date, but you can seek second or municipal support, and that would go through onto AM, where this one would be submitted onto the executive committee of AM, and they would consider if the resolution would meet the merits of the policy and either be advanced on or not advanced at this given time. So just through in the report on page 3. So according to the AM resolutions policy, AM administration received council's draft emergent resolution prior to the start of the convention onto the committee, and then they would vet it to see if it meets the policy. If it does, then we would provide 1,000 copies of the resolution we would take with us to the conference. So in part of this process, we did contact the AM administration, and the last large paragraph of page 3 is an explanation of the response and verbalizing what they stated, that the process would include with the understanding that the moratorium legislation expires February 29th. Administration contacted AM staff about the process and timing. Administration was told that with respect to when the resolution advances to the board for action, it's not usually a speedy process, and it really depends on the active clauses of the resolution. Resolutions that focus on requests for action by the provincial and federal governments are submitted to the relevant ministries following convention. Based on the topic of the resolution, the appropriate Alberta municipalities Standing Policy Committee reviews the government's response to the resolution and recommends whether AM should accept the response or take further action based on the prioritization framework. The board then reviews the committee's recommendations and either approves them for action, or they amend the recommendations and or give the committee further direction. The first committee meetings for the 23-24 committee term are in December, so a best case scenario would be to receive a ministerial response before the meeting and have recommendations brought to the board for their December meeting. That said, the board also uses the resolutions where our members past inform their own priorities and work plan, as well as what they mandate committees to focus on. So if the board sees your resolution as an urgent policy, they can also take actions outside of that process. Oops, sorry. Like raising the issue, meetings in the issues with ministers and public communications. If the resolution doesn't call for provincial federal government's action, it can be much faster. So really saying all that is, my question to you, Council, is what is really the call to action? Where do you want to advocate? What is the call to action from this Council to help me develop your emergent resolution?
Thank you, CEO Becker. Councillor Heistad?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Barclay. Just questions to CEO Becker. Just, I know Alberta Municipalities has not spoken on this issue at all, correct? On any news pieces out
see,
there
Councillor
that you can identify, but the RMA has, right, saying that it wasn't a positive move, right? And the reason why this is where I'm getting at is, I look at it, Alberta Munis as a voice for councils, and I do feel that the process and having our own news releases the past few weeks was notification that this is a concern, not only for our community, but if you're looking at Caroline and other communities that may be affected by the moratorium. And I understand through the process, it may not be, the process may be painful through Alberta Munis up until December 2023, correct? That's what I'm getting from your information, is that it may be not moved readily. But how I look at this process as a September convention is you have local media there, you have advocacy there, and we're not the only community that would be affected by this. So I look at this as an advocacy piece. It's not about pissing off the government or anything like that, but I can already see that we've already done the advocacy piece with Mayor Barclay already talking to Red Deer News, CBC, other news medias, is that this isn't going to affect our relationship. What I see this is advocacy on behalf of municipalities like ours, and having independence, and us having that independence is to run our community and to have the government there. The government needs to give us the levers to do the work that we're supposed to be doing, not to interfere. And those are my comments right now, as I look at it as advocacy, period, and the government knows their role and we know our role, and we should be advocating for it. So, and if my last comment would be, if this goes through, I do believe this should be led by our mayor and our council. Like if we've already gone out there and obviously we've done a press release of some kind, we've made an announcement on the moratorium, then let's stick with it and go ahead and just do the right thing. That's how I'm looking at it, but that's just me. Thanks.
CEO Becker?
So the Councillor Heistad, just for clarity, RMA is for the moratorium? Yeah. And I guess what is the concern? Like, is it the moratorium as the title? The council is advocating the government to stop the moratorium. Is that the call to action? Or is it one of the 5 sections of, I guess I'm just looking, because what needs to go with your call to action is detailed data, argument, support to the title of this.
How I look at it, and I think it's been explained, or what I've read, is it does slow down process for our community and other communities. It's an economic development driver within our province. That's how it's being looked at the Pembina Institute. And, there should be autonomy for us to do the work that we're doing in our industrial area. And that's what I understood the intent was, as a community, was to have that independence and to generate some revenue going back into, potentially paying this off within a 5-year period and having $500,000 coming into our community. So it just slows down our process.
And I think those are, Mayor Barclay, Councillor Heistad, I think those are good points for Innisfil. Then is there a context to the Alberta municipalities, not the organization, to other similar municipalities? So that in the research, I'm not picking that up. I heard of Caroline, but I'm not picking up any other urban municipalities or even all municipalities. The argument is, I think it's focused on urban municipalities, because I think RMAs, we know where they land, and the rural side. The urban side is, I'm not picking up any of that helps support the arguments. And if you have that, I'd love to get it, then we can start building it. But I think Innisfil, has it impacted us? No, not at this point. And it may have it might have a delay, depends on if you approve this at budget time. We don't know what's gonna happen after February 29th, but I guess I'm just looking for where are we finding the information to help for you to create this argument. And like, again, I can wordsmith the data, but I'm not finding data to support council's argument at this given time. We have an argument, potentially Innisfail, but more we can fill in what is the call to action, what is council's concern. The more distinct you could be with this argument, the better you'll help me perceiving in a very short window of time.
Question, I got a question, Your Worship. Has, through CEO Becker, has there been communication with Caroline's administration on this, just after that meeting?
There's not contacts. There's contact that to be made as a requirement for seconder. They'd be one argument for sure, because they perhaps to be similar to Innisfail, perhaps, but I've not contacted their administration at this given time.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Harrison?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay, and just comments. The 5 points that have been tasked to AUC, there's no mention of economic drivers and the potential for, and that's what I hear from Caroline. That's what's going to help Innisfail, and there's probably many other communities that once they get into it, it's going to be because we can generate revenue to sell the power back into the grid, basically. So my question would be, has AM, well, there's nothing in the 5 here, so a call to action on that, how do we go about that? Because to me, it's an economic driver. What are we going to lose or gain if we don't go ahead with renewable energy? So that's the first thing. The process, what is the process? Will we as municipalities through AM or individually have an opportunity to comment to AUC on whatever we'd like to comment? And in our case, it's going to be an economic driver, like the tax base and what we're going to generate in power on our 4 or 5 acres down there. So how do we get that out? Because I think we need to, it doesn't look like AM is, because of lack of other municipalities or whatever, really stepped up to take it like RMA has done. So how do we as a municipality, we've written a nice letter to the ministers, to the MLA, to the federal minister, stating, here's what we want to do, but we haven't given any kind of, this is how it's going to help Innisfail in the long term. So maybe I'll leave it at that right now, but for me, it's an economic driver. Reclamation standards, those are going to be pretty standard. They're going to, they're going to be reclaimed, and but to go to individual one of these points, I don't see anything. You might be able to squeeze economic driver into point number 5, where considerations of the impact on the increasing growth of renewals. You might be able to stretch that into what's the economic benefit of putting in a solar or wind or whatever. So those would be my comments more than, and I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
CEO Becker?
So, Councillor Harrison, so the process and the report is pretty clear, I think, on AUC will be inviting stakeholders to participate in the inquiry process. There's also a section that will be reviewing the role of municipal governments in the land selection for project development, as the report states. So there's some clarity there. The economics, that's the part to help council achieve a successful resolution. Like, there's one thing to lob a resolution in there, and if that's what the intent is, just say it. We just want to lob a resolution into this process to make a point, or you want factual data to win, to be successful. So that's the clarity I'm looking for, is if you want to be successful from my perspective, you need facts and data. And I'm having there's a Pembina document The Investment Impact of Alberta Renewable Energy Moratorium says these projects represent at least 33 billion, 118 projects, but there's no data to state what these 7 months will do. Is it really going to slow down or cancel 118 projects? I don't know. It may not. Will it mean Alberta's going to lose $33 billion worth of investment? I doubt it. So is that the data we put into a draft resolution to AM? Is that kind of data? Again, you're presenting, where's the data to help for you to be successful? Or is it, let's just advocate and make a point and demonstrate visible that Innisfil Council wishes to tell Alberta municipalities we are against this moratorium, and let's get rid of the moratorium and let us do the business that we are intending to do.
Certainly not against the moratorium if they're looking at reclamation standards and environmental concerns, like the RMA. If you go back to, viewscapes and that kind of stuff, I can't dispute that. But how do we capture that economic? These are numbers that the Pembina Institute has drawn out of the air. Like, are they must have had some data. Like, I don't know. I guess what happens on February the 25th when the report comes out, and now I'm making assumptions and I shouldn't do that because it makes an ass out of all of us. What happens if they say, well, we're not going to go ahead with renewable energy? What do we do, right? It just seems like, I don't know where we go to from here. I really don't.
I think this is good. Like, I'm hearing that, so council member, hey, I'm for the reclamation. There's parts of this I'm supporting. So that's exactly what I'm looking for, is that kind of feedback from council is, hey, I'm not just against the moratorium, and maybe Councillor Heistad said it, I'm not sure, but part of this is, hey, I'm for the moratorium to be able to achieve standards, regulation, regulatory, whatever, legislation. Yeah, just, that's the specifics I'm looking for from council.
And has that been captured in the terms of reference that have been given to the AUC? In my view of looking at the 5 points, the economic side hasn't been really that distinct or that specific to AUC. Look at the economic drivers. Like, what is the economic impact? Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know.
I'll just turn it back here, but I don't think AUC is tasked with the economics. They're tasked to look after a system for Alberta to follow.
Okay, well then, I can't dispute the 5 things that they're talking about. Like, I can't say that we shouldn't not support the moratorium based on these 5. I'd like to have something about economics put into, and maybe that's phase 2 of the assessment is the evaluation of the economic side. Because
I have a question for Councillor Harrison. What do you think those 5 points are? They're not anything to do with AM. They are the 5 things that the AUC was given to investigate by the government.
Yeah, I'm not talking.
And when the way I look at it, we drafted a letter, sent it to lots of people. It got good press, and it covered it. When we approved doing that letter, I do remember personally saying the only reason that we don't have for sending the letter is number 5, because that doesn't pertain directly to us. The other 4, we've got coverage because it's our land. We would know what we would do with it. it's a small project. Number 5, yeah, it's the government trying to figure out how to balance their entire grid and supply, and so that at supper time when we all turn on our stoves that we have power. That's the way I interpret it. And I guess, well, yeah, I was against what we did last week. And I asked that question, what is the driver? And I didn't get an answer. And now I see the CAO, because when I go to AAM and somebody puts out a resolution, it says, we, the town of Innisfail, state that we want to see AM advocate this to the government, whatever the this is. And then somebody seconds it, people speak for, people speak against, and then they vote on it. But if we can't even define what it is that we want to state, then I have a real problem similar to seemingly what the CAO has, that it's hard to put it together if you don't know what you're...
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor Barclay, and thanks, Councillor Bates. I don't see AAM advocating for anything, either yay or nay. And I guess that's what I'm getting at is, where do we have the opportunity, and it sounds like somewhere along in the next 4 or 5 months, we'll be able to sit down with somebody from AU's, and yeah, one of our considerations is big, it's economic driver. And as long as we have that input, I can't dispute any one of these 5 areas. I agree with those. But there's no mention. So when does the economic driver come into it? The economic benefits of green energy for the town of Innisfail, the village of Caroline, for Vulcan, wherever. Like, how do we get that on? I don't see AAM advocating for anything. They haven't said yay or nay to this moratorium, unless I've missed something in the 20 pages of documents that we got here. So.
I think, you know, the economics of it, they're outside the realm of it. The Alberta Utilities Commission, they're looking at a power system and ensuring that power system is designed in the right way, whether we agree with what they're doing or not. I can tell you, being at a meeting last week with South Central Alberta mayors, there's not support for probably what we would bring to Alberta municipalities. One of the mayors, they have a huge project happening on land just outside their municipality, and they are all for this moratorium. They want things to be designed properly because of the size of some of these projects. And yes, ours got kind of caught up in this without question. And I think we've made that clear that through our letter to the ministers that, you know, we're not on prime ag land. It's a small project. Economic benefits were addressed in the letter. But outside of Caroline and Innisfail, as CEO Becker said, I don't see any other support for this. And I think, it's going to be really hard for Alberta municipalities to say, yes, let's make this emergent resolution because of that lack of support. One of the mayors at the meeting the other day said they tried to put in an emergent resolution last year or last spring, and it was no, because it was determined it was too self-serving. It wasn't broad enough in scope to affect enough municipalities. I think when we look at the timing, in 5 months, we're going to be at the end of the moratorium at February 29th. We don't know what's coming out of it. I have heard certainly total support for renewables from RMA. I hear it from the government, but they want to make sure the system is right. We haven't even put our project in, and I think this is a big point. We have not even submitted our project to AUC as of this point in time, and that's going to take a budget decision. But I think even if it was submitted today, which it can be, it can still go through a whole process, just that approval won't be granted. And I'm guessing, I don't know, I bet that process would be 5-6 months alone, right? Just maybe you know Director Kennedy or CO Becker from previous application on the big project. I mean, that whole thing took 2 years from start to finish. So So for me, it's about the time. It's about the time that we're spending right now putting into this, not even knowing whether Alberta municipalities will approve it. And I would be somewhat, I'm not sure where I land, whether our colleagues at Alberta municipalities would even overwhelmingly support this. And then if they don't, maybe it passes at 55%, where does it sit in Alberta municipalities' priorities? Because they get a lot of resolutions. We know how thick the resolution book is. And talking to our Alberta Munis rep, you know, and CEO Becker has laid this out in the document, it takes time for them to even get to the advocacy point, especially when there's government involved, another level of government. So I doubt they would even get to the advocacy before the moratorium was up. So I am not in favor of us continuing on. I know our CEO spent, I think, a day and a half last week working on this. He probably has another 10, 12 hours work left to make it into a resolution. And I look at that cost and that time spent as to what benefit when it's only 5 months down the road and we can still submit our application if we want to. I think we've made our voice heard through these letters we've sent, but you know, at some point, it's I think we've done lots already, so it's time cost versus what is the benefit that we might see.
Okay, thank you. Great comments, Mayor Barclay, and I fully agree with you. I guess what concerns me is will we, and I've heard that we will, be eligible for feedback, and it's an economic driver for me. So however that's going to happen, is it through AM, maybe in phase 2? I'm not, you know, advocating for a resolution that we put a hold on the moratorium, because I agree with all these points. I agree with standards for reclamation. Security requirements, Crown land, private land. You know, I said at 2 or 3 previous meetings, you know, there should be 2 sets of conditions, one for Crown land and one for private land, such as in municipalities. We can look after, you know, lay out the reclamation. We can certainly look after it. But somewhere along the line, I think we need to be able to lobby for, this is a big economic development process for that. And maybe when we meet with Minister McIver, the Minister of Municipal Affairs, that's thrown out there, you know, like, we're not against the moratorium. However, we'd certainly like to bring up the, you know, and maybe that's already been done through the letter. I know it was.
The letter's in the package.
Mentions that, so maybe there's some numbers, you know, we can work out the tax implications or whatever, just to plant the seed, because I know it's not AUC's mandate to look at the economics, but I believe that we need to have an opportunity to comment on the economics. So those would be my comments on this. So, yeah.
And we have commented on that through the letter. We've stated very clearly what the economics is. It's 500,000. Well, it's probably 600,000 a year. I think the last data that we got on that. But
yeah.
So they're aware. But like, this isn't about the economics. It's about, do we take this to Alberta municipalities? Are we trying to get an emergent resolution through in the next 10 days? And is it going to fly at AM? Or is the board going to say, yeah, you can bring this forward? Or is the scope of this so narrow because there's only 2 communities, Caroline and Innisfail, impacted from what we can gather? Are they going to say, yes, bring it forward? Or they're going to say, no, the scope's too narrow? And how much more time and work do we want our administration to spend on this, to send it in?
We're back to
I don't
square
know.
one again.
That's what we need to decide.
What does the resolution look like? Like it, based on this here and the discussion for the last 20 minutes, I can't support and won't support a resolution to put a moratorium on. It's the contents of what is going to come out of this moratorium. If it's just reclamation standards, I'm all for it. And based on the 5 considerations here in the background, That's what AUCE has been tasked to look at. And I certainly can't dispute any one of those.
But what we need to do today, Councillor Harrison, we need to decide if this is going forward as an emergent resolution, and we're going to submit that to AM, likely this week or by next Monday. It has to come to council next Monday. What is that going to say? Do we want to move forward and do that or not? That's what we need to decide.
Agreed, and I don't have the wording of the resolution. My concern in this discussion, debate is around economics. And if we feel that our economics has been laid out clear enough for the ministers and everything, then I'm okay with it. And then when you folks meet with the Minister MacGyver again, just casually mention it again in your ministers meeting, because I think it's important. And I think that's where Caroline's coming from too. Like, it's big for them. You know, I drove through there on the weekend, and you know, like their tax, oh, whatever, we won't even go there. But you know, it's all around the economics. And if we feel that we have an opportunity, and it sounds like you know, we're going to have an opportunity to talk about that, at least put it on the table that, you know, there is and in the letter, if that, you know, the letter's very clear, very well written, and that may be enough. But you can never have enough with when you're talking with a minister or an MLA. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Councillor Heistad?
Does anybody else want to speak? I've spoken quite a couple times on this. I'll wait and let somebody else speak.
Okay,
Councillor Messaros?
thank you, Mayor Barclay. I'm a little bit late to the conversation since I wasn't here, but it sounds to me like, I'm not clear what we want to get out of it. Do we want to put a resolution forward to stop the moratorium, or to just excuse us from having to pause it? And I guess the question is, are we even really impacted by the moratorium if we haven't put an application into the AUC? What I noticed on reading this, and thank you so much for putting all this together, admin and CAO, is the challenges that administration is facing. And I think that those are real challenges, and they're important. And I wouldn't want to put something forward in the face of all the challenges that admin has pointed out. And if we're going to, I don't know if I'm reading this correctly, but the section 27, when it talks about what won't be put forward, or what doesn't qualify as a resolution, and it talks about, it says if there's an internal municipal issue. So if we decide that we want to put a resolution forward that is just to excuse us from the moratorium, does that connect to that section 27? Is that just an internal municipal issue? Is that kind of what that means? So I guess back to kind of where I started, I'm not 100% sure what we're looking for, and I don't think that that's been defined yet. But from my point of view, I would disagree with either one of those resolutions.
Councillor Wing?
Thank you. I guess I've, right from the start, have looked at this from a completely different lens than the rest of you, and so I'll just say what's on my mind, and then I'm not going to say another word. I did do a lot of research actually around other communities, not relevant to the moratorium, but the kinds of things that you hear from communities, and it's in our strategic plan, and it's everywhere. You know, we talk about, we want our communities to be adaptable and resilient, and we want them to be innovative and sustainability and all of the things. The government of Alberta also has some key areas of interest, and one of them that we've been hearing about for the last number of months has been around intergovernmental relations, encouraging urban and rural communities to work together around services and facilities and infrastructure. They're pushing hard, actually, to get some of that activity going on throughout the province. And so from my perspective, if I was going to sit down and write an emergent resolution, it wouldn't have anything to do with Innisfail specifically, and as it relates to the moratorium. I would be writing an emergent resolution that focuses on Legislation such as the Generational Approvals Pause Regulation has taken collaboration and communication and vital economic development and environmental sustainability deliberations off the table. Communications and conversations that should have been happening with municipalities relative to what's going on in their own communities, and the provincial government walked in and said, nope. And you can't have those conversations anymore without bringing the proper process and the proper groups to the table. So myself, if I was going to write the resolution, it would be more focused on shared leadership where communities are impacted on a much larger scale than just simply the province's mandate. I'm concerned about this government when they do things like this because they have a party that's divisive, that's pushing them. And I think it's just time that Alberta municipalities and RMA stand up together to say it's not reasonable that you make legislation like this that impacts us as municipalities so significantly and we haven't had an opportunity to provide input. So right from the start, that was truly my biggest concern about the moratorium. I get it, it'll end in February. It will just continue doing what we're doing. But the fact that they can do stuff like that, 118 projects that Pembina talks about, $33 billion, and just because with the swipe of a ministerial pen, everything grinds to a halt without a conversation, and that's what bugs me. And that's where my focus around this whole piece really lay right from the get-go was Alberta municipalities I think it's disappointing that they haven't stood up and said, wait a minute, where was the process around the decision? So I don't believe that it can be so narrow to say we're going to stand up in front of the province and say poor little Innisfail wants the moratorium lifted for our park. No, that wouldn't be the point at all. Municipalities, Alberta municipalities operates at a much higher level, and to me it's just more around how can we work together with the government rather than having the government do it to us again and again.
Mayor Barclay, Councillor Wing, so at the start of this you mentioned if I was the one writing this, so I'm the if I, that's me. So you mentioned collaboration. It sounds like more of a resolution to the function of government than actually to a moratorium of renewable energy. Seems like that's your focus.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
because I'm seeing that although the initial shock has created a lot of concern, there is a collaboration piece to it, and that's inviting feedback. So could we break that down a bit further to explore how I would put that into wording based on the moratorium? Or is it bigger? It's more of a government issue, relationship issue.
Yeah.
And that should be in the form of a resolution.
I'm not even sure, actually, that it's a resolution. I mean, I guess I'm sad that I'm sorry that I'd like to see us be more strategic around how we prepare for Alberta munis to begin with. Like this came out in May. It would have been nice to have had a conversation in May to say, we've been doing some really impressive work in Innisfail. Is there something that we can bring forward? Whatever. But that said, to me, it's not about we want the moratorium lifted. To me, it's about we want the government to be respectful of Alberta munis and RMA and all of the communities they represent, and bringing them together before they make big decisions like a moratorium that impacts the economic development in communities, that impacts planning, that impacts the investment of companies and businesses from outside the country even. Now they're looking at Alberta going, you guys have lost your minds. So anyways, that's, I don't know. I don't know. It feels like a rabbit hole, Todd, and I have, or CEO Becker, and I'm sorry for that, but yeah, again, it's unfortunate that, I mean, I don't feel bad we're having this conversation, and I appreciate the input from administration, and I appreciate that there's work for you involved in that, but I think it's important that we work at that level as a team, at that higher level a little bit more often, so.
Councillor Wing, here to support council, I just need information. That's all I'm looking for is specific, distinct to what is the call to action? What is the call to action of council that you'll present to 2,000 people, perhaps next Thursday-ish? So if you could break it down to what is the call to action, then I have my marching orders.
Councillor Heistad?
Yeah, no, I appreciate, first off, I want to say that I do appreciate administration's time and the time that we're actually, this isn't, to me, this isn't a waste of time. I would agree with Councillor Wing is strategically it would help us to get better at wording resolutions in the future. But I do feel like I'm, in some ways we're getting talked out of this, right, to do this. And I don't think that's, when we voted on this last week, it was 3-4, 2 against, I think it was, or something like that. But we don't even know the other communities that are being affected by this moratorium. Are we throwing something to the wall? Yeah, maybe. And sometimes that's okay to have things going forward to municipalities, AM, and putting the time into it. And they may shelf it, they may bring it forward. We don't know. And these are good discussions, and I don't think that I get concerned when we're told that this is a lot of time has been put into administration on this, but we put a lot of time and effort in our roles to make sure that we're doing what's right for our community. So those are my comments. Are we going to go forward or not? That's my question here in this gallery today. I'm seeing and feeling an awkward moment, and maybe putting the moose on the, was it the elephant or the moose up? Because that's how I'm sensing this right now. We're like, that's how I'm feeling. That's my sense of it. And, I got Mayor Jean being quoted here, just even from our local paper, frustrated with the government's 6-month pause. Like, those are the things that we need to be advocating for, even at AM. Even if AM's doing a really shitty job, our job is to push them to do a better job. And it's not, Gavin last week said, well, we could be ruffling the government's feathers and that. And it's like, but it's good for us to be upfront with the current government or any government, previous government as well, and saying these are the things that aren't, you shouldn't be doing that to small communities like ours. And that's where I was coming at when I brought forward the resolution. So if we, I think we need to know whether or not we're moving forward to today or not. And awkward moments are okay in leadership roles. That's how we learn. Thanks.
Councillor Bates?
So reflecting, you use my name again, and that's fine, and this is an interactive discussion. The first question I asked last week was, what were you asking to be done? And now the CAO is asking in bold print, what is the call to action? Because we can't discuss it. We all have different thoughts in our minds. We all know that we think we want to do a small solar farm here, and we have a plan, and it's our land. We all know that if we go ahead with that at budget time, that we absolutely want it to happen. But the question is still, other than the call to action is to ruffle the government's feathers, what are we actually trying to do with a very short time frame, creating an emergent? What are we trying to do? Like, it should be a few words. We are asking for the moratorium to be stopped. We are asking, which I wouldn't do, but we are disputing the 5 reasons that you've asked for this moratorium, or we want a 6th one. Yeah, it's too nebulous. It's too nebulous at this point for me to put my credibility behind the town of Innisfail when we're going to meet with the minister who's had our letter and everything else. And I think we do jeopardize our capital with the government if we don't have something that really makes sense and something that we can really stand behind. And right now we don't.
Anybody else want to say anything? Councillor Messaros?
Oh, thanks, Mayor Barclay. I'm just going to, I guess, reiterate, but because I missed the last two discussions, I kind of feel like you're driving it a little bit, Councillor Heistad. So what is it that you're looking for?
Actually, I want to speak on, I'm not driving anything. This is a motion that was brought forward, the previous council, and was voted on by 3-2. As to me bringing it up was driving the whole thing. Like, I'm not driving the bus. I think we're all driving the bus today. So as to me mentioning Gavin's name is that previous meeting, and if I offended you that way, I think that if I'm referencing to some of the previous discussion. That's it.
I'm not offended in any way.
Okay, that's good.
Keep that off the table.
As to driving it is the concern that I have as a councillor that we've already had press releases stating the concern with the moratorium. So how I look at the vehicle as Alberta municipalities is having that discussion and being able to bring forward emergent resolutions. And this emergent resolution may not even get to the floor, period. But as a governing body of AM, their job is to advocate for us as communities. So if I see it's Innisfail, Caroline, there may be other municipalities in the province that we don't know of and administration may be aware of that may be facing the same thing. That's why you advocate. And that's as to driving it, I made the resolution, yes, but I don't drive the full discussion. I want to make sure that we're all included.
Councillor Messaros?
Thanks, Councillor Heistad. I guess I still don't understand what resolution we want to bring forward. That just hasn't been identified. I'm not clear about it.
Councillor
Like, what are we
Heistad?
advocating for?
Councillor Heistad?
Yeah, I'm trying to hit the button. The concern with the moratorium on municipalities, and that's what I was bringing forward.
So are you asking for no moratorium? You want the moratorium lifted?
I think it should
Yes.
be a discussion. I think this discussion should be allowing municipalities like ours to have the autonomy to continue on with the work that we're doing. And you know, if I look at our press releases, we're disappointed with it. So yeah, should be lifted. Why not?
Well, yeah, in our letter, we asked for an exemption for our project
Yeah.
because it was so unique, but we
and-
haven't had an answer yet. So,
And I think that's all right, but we know that there's a potential of others out there, right?
And who are the others?
Well, you're looking at Caroline, and then I asked the question today to administration, do we know any others? But I feel like this awkward moment is like we're getting talked out of the motion that we brought forward,
No, but-
right?
No, I think we all have an opportunity to voice our concern and might be on opposite sides of the discussion, and that's what healthy debate's all about. So
Correct.
nobody's trying to talk you out of it, but you know, there is a cost to and a time to doing this, and I guess I really want council to think about how likely are we to succeed that Alberta municipalities will say, yes, this emergent resolution can be brought forward when we have two communities that are really the only ones we can hear, that we've heard from, that are impacted, Caroline and Innisfail. Do you think Alberta municipalities is going to say, oh, okay, yeah, let's bring that forward. That affects 2 out of 300.
Well, when you're looking at the Pembina Institute,
No, I don't want to hear about Pembina
well,
because
you can just,
No,
we're debating this.
I know, Councillor Heistad, but the Pembina paper, I mean, it's even being questioned as well. So I don't think that would be anything that we would submit along with this because we don't know who's in the queue, who's not. We can send our project in to AUC. I mean, we could do that next week if we wanted to make a motion and send our project in. So I just want people to understand, is this realistic or not? That's all I'm getting at.
Your Worship, would this be, would there be an opportunity during our strategic plan to have further discussion, or do you want to finalize this today?
I think we'll need to finalize it today because there's another probably day and a half of work to go into a resolution.
no,
to be
I'm just
brought
asking the
forward
question.
next- Well, maybe ask CEO Becker, but I don't know. He's the one that's doing the work on it, so.
Usually a resolution would take a month or two to develop. Council's asking me to do this basically in a week and a half. So I'll be working way into the evening over the rest of the week. Your agenda comes out the latest noon Friday, usually should come out noon Thursday, but we're busy Thursday, so if I can have the most clarity I can get today, that'd be quite beneficial. Well, it's required, to be honest with you. To achieve a draft resolution, I'll need specific feedback from you today, please.
Where's everybody at? Like, I'm curious, do you want me to make a motion to table?
No motions in A and P. So,
Okay, yeah, it'd be at regular council, right? So, okay, sorry, thanks.
yeah, so we can decide today whether we want to continuing on with this, or are we confident that it will, I guess, make it through AM? And are we confident if it got to AM, are we confident that we're going to get the support from the municipalities and the people in the audience to advocate for Innisfail and Caroline, basically? And I guess any other community, I don't know of any other urbans right now that have stepped up. So up to council. Councillor Bates.
Well, I guess I'm still struggling. What am I being asked? Is the statement, we want the moratorium overturned? Is that the statement? What are we being asked? And that goes back, I think, to Councillor Heistad, because I don't know what. I'm not sure what, and that's what the CAO needs is, it's right there in bold print. What is the call to, what do you want us to state in the I don't know what it is.
Okay, Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Well, I think part of the reason that we're having this discussion is for each one of us to put our thought on the table as to what is the call to action. So, I mean, I guess my suggestion would be that, and I guess my other comment is, I don't think we have enough time to do this as well as we should. If the driving force behind putting a resolution together is purely because you want to win something as opposed to educate people. So I don't believe we have enough support to say we want the moratorium to be lifted immediately. I think we know that can't possibly happen. Alberta municipalities doesn't have they're not that nimble that they would be able to make. It makes complete sense. If, in my opinion, if the wording was around something more in the area of asking the government of Alberta to be more inclusive in their decision-making, including Alberta municipalities and RMA for future legislation, that kind of a scenario, to me, I mean, there might be a case for support. You might be able to get support from other municipalities to just say, you know what, they're right. It's not fair that small communities get screwed because the government can drop the hammer and the rest of us just go about our business as usual. So I don't know, but I don't feel like we have the time that we really need to be able to put the thought and the research and everything into it to make it successful. So that would be my focus. If council was determined to move forward with it, my suggestion would be more at a leadership level, challenging the process as opposed to just simply asking for the moratorium to go away.
All right, thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I would certainly concur with that. Based on our discussions and debates here that we've had, the background, and I thank administration for putting all this together in a document that I could certainly read. That at this point in time, based on the terms of reference that have been given to AUC, I'm certainly not advocating to overturn the moratorium, and I won't advocate for that. But I do agree with Councillor Wing that we should be looking at all-inclusiveness. And maybe it's an idea or a suggestion that we go ahead over the next 8 or 9 months and work on the resolution for the 2024 convention to talk about that. That'll have given the government a year and a little bit to have sort of worked through some of their issues, and gives us time to actually put together a meaningful resolution. So would be, and I'm agreeing with Councillor Wing here that it's more than just, I certainly can't agree with overturning the moratorium being that blunt. I do have concerns about economic drivers. We have an opportunity to talk about those at different meetings, different advocacy venues. One coming up here in 2 weeks with our Minister for Municipal Affairs. We've done our letters, but let's look at over the next 8 or 9 months, looking at developing a really sound, hard resolution on the inclusiveness. Actually go out and talk to our mayors' caucuses and administration to talk to their networks to see what the support for that kind of thing is. This has been sort of the first test for the government to go out and we're just going to ram it down your throats. Okay, that's okay. But let's work towards 2024. I thank you for your time.
Councillor Heistad?
Yeah, actually, just listening to Councillor Wing and Councillor Harrison, I can agree with that, and I think that will bode well for 2024. I respect the time and energy that our administration puts in throughout the year, but I do see that this is one that we can't just park as well. Like if we're going to be a partner with the government, that if we're going to put something forward, we got to put the time and effort where truly they understand that we're a partner. And as to previous press releases that I read and where we're at, I appreciate Mayor Barclay advocating for us as a community. I think that, on a personal level, I always think that AM at times, they play in the middle too much. They're not going in the corners. It's just like a hockey game, a player that doesn't want to get a little dirty and throw some weight around. So that's my concern with AM. But as to where the direction where Councillor Wing and the collectiveness of, making sure that we're a partner, and I appreciate that, and I can live with that for sure. I think this was worth the discussion. Thank you.
Okay, so what is the conclusion then? That we're not moving this forward, or?
Take the evening off.
To the question, Mayor Barclay, because we have some limitations, or you have some limitations on decision-making at AMP, you can make directives through policy. It might be cleaner just for administrative report for next Monday, outlining this discussion in a short way. And you can provide official notice for the public record, whatever you feel that is at that given time. Understanding that administration, what I'm hearing is we're not drafting the resolution at this given time. And time is not the factor. If your directive is to move into resolution, I want to make it clear that administration is not attempting to be a roadblock on council's action. It's looking for clarity. And sometimes bringing it into the evenings is what we do, but I'll just ask if I'm clear. If come with administrative report, then you can provide your official public record direction next Monday.
Councillor Wing?
Yeah, just one comment then, and perhaps then this is something we can talk about on Thursday when we're doing our strat planning and looking forward to the work for the next year. Okay.
Okay, we will move on then to 3.2, strategic priorities.
Okay, so this part of the meeting is really geared towards strat planning, leading you into some discussion for Thursday. So the areas that we like to talk to you about or with you about or receive questions for clarity, the areas to cover includes the 2022 annual reports, respecting, we do realize it's coming in a little bit late. Developed a really solid template, which will be easy access for next year. We'll go through that information with you. The third quarter strategic plan update, to seeing if we're on track, meeting your expectation. Strategic priorities, dated April 3rd, but also a new draft for your consideration leading into Thursday's meeting. The 2024 initial budget forecast, which is a verbal report, and then going into detailed discussion on a 10-year capital forecast. Again, emphasis on forecast. It's not a full detailed capital plan, but a forecast coming towards your consideration. And then just because we work in a larger geographical area, we shared the Red Deer County Economic Development Strategy. So with that, we'll see where we're at, and please interrupt with any questions or comments. So initially, we'll start off with the 2022 annual report to Director Vickers.
Thank you. So I just want to ask if everyone got their little booklet, that we did put one out by everyone's desk today so that they can have a look. As CEO Becker is saying, we've been working hard on this document now. We developed it internally, and when I say we, I mean primarily the communications department and our communications coordinator, Ken Kwalachuk over there. He worked many, many hours on this document. One of the thoughts that he had was he tried to keep it in the same look as your strat planning documents are, so it kind of feels the same. Would you like to go through each page and go through it all? We can just do a quick one if you'd like.
Yeah, maybe touch on the highlights. Director
Absolutely.
Vickers, thank you.
So we started out with just the introduction of town council and a message from the mayor. That's just on the first page. Second and third page, we kept just our vision, mission, and values, and then just a snapshot of our 22 to 25 strategic priorities, just as a kind of a gentle reminder. And then, so the first step we started was a robust and adaptable economy. So this talks a lot about our focus on economic development, our hub for innovation, our energy hub. We talk about our population, our labor force. We make mention to our Innisfil has well below average mill rates with residential as well as non-residential. And just some stats in around the town. Okay, the next page, we just repurposed the same document that we provided at budget time, just to remind everyone what we did do in 2022. And then on the next page, just a list of all the capital projects that were identified as priorities in 22, with some pictures. As you can see, we put the sound wall, we put the helipad and the new playground, as well as the pace bus, because this is all items that were purchased in 22. The next one, we get into respect for our environment, and we want to talk about how we implemented automatic recycling this year, right? So 2022 saw the addition of the larger capacity 240-liter recycling carts. That happened in July. And then as a result, recycling increased in 2022 by 28.25 metric tons. So it was a pretty good program. And we did just put some stats at the bottom about how much waste and garbage that we have collected throughout the year. We put our utility rate sheet in as well. This was a document that we also put out at budget time in 2022, just as a reminder of what our rates were. So this next page, I just do want to apologize. I feel like the document that's online is not the same, in the same order, I think.
It's just that center fold is where she's at.
Oh. Yeah, yeah, I'm at the centerfold picture right now. So this is designed to do a double page, so 2 pages right in the center of the book. And it's just kind of a snapshot of the town. We wanted to make it kind of fun and inviting and kind of really showcase all the different things that we have for the town. For example, 7985 residents, we have 1 ski hill, even the 1 dinosaur. We added in the helicopter there. There's 27 holes of golf at the Innisfil Golf Club. We have to put in our little deer as well, a little bit of wildlife. So it's just kind of a cute little walk through the town, right? And everyone can see kind of all the items that we have here. So we really kind of thought it was good. We even have our little skate park dude he's driving to the skate park right now. Not driving, skating, is that what you call it, skating? Anyway, riding, yeah. We even put the 3 bears in the wildlife park there, right? So just as a cute little thing to showcase all the staff, or what we have. Okay. On the next page, we did get some stats from the library of all their stuff from 22. So all their new memberships, all their sign-in computers, and all the different items that they released. This big, long list is all the items that you can actually check out there if you had a membership card there. So they really do some amazing, amazing work. They're quite busy. Then we get into our fire service. So we did bring in the call volume by month, and we did do a comparison of the year 2021 and as well as the year 2022. So you can actually see just our fire services, our calls went up. In 21, they were at 323, and then in 2022, they went up to 377. So that's like about 50 so more in one last year than in the year before. The next pages are talking about the Innisfil RCMP, and so we do start off by outlining their strategic priorities that council did approve. And then we went into bylaw services as well, and we did the comparisons of 21 to 22. We tried to keep the protective services kind of linked together. And again, 21 even for complaints, 652 complaints in 2021, files, and in 2022, 731. So that's about 80 more files that they had to do in 2022 than 2021. Even complaints went up from 651 to 731. So the next one, we did more of the connected community that fosters that sense of belonging. So really talking about all the events that were put on, not only by us, but also events that we as the town supported. So special events, for example, are the Seniors Garden Party, the Innisfil Pro Rodeo, My Day with the Stanley Cup, and so on, as well as community programs offered, including the Innisfil Eagles Minor Hockey, Innisfil Phantoms Minor Lacrosse, Innisfil Skating Club, and so on. The next page, it goes on to talk about grant funding. And there's a couple different kinds of grant funding on this page. So the first one is just the community grant funding, and that is just funded by our own internal operating grant. Then we go on to FCSS funding. So FCSS in 22 distributed $134,000 to local externally funded agencies, and they are listed there. And then we did want to make note of the Elemental Energy Community Fee Assistance Program and the Community Benefit Fund Program. So the following on just the right side of the page there, the following grants have been made possible by the generous contribution of the Innisfil Solar Corporation, Elemental Energy. They are the developers of the Innisfil Solar Farm. So it's just outlining that $3,598 in funding were provided to 27 individuals in 22, as well as just over $11,000 in funding to local organizations, and those are listed there. On the next page, we wanted to add in our building permit stats, so it kind of shows how busy the builders were in the town. So you can see for residential, 7 units were built in 22. We had 10 garages or / renovations, 8 commercial builds, and 6 industrial. And so we've kept the last few years there so we can kind of see that trend. And then on the last page, we did do just a snapshot of the CED. That was a pretty big focus for the council and administration in 2022. So we did want to kind of highlight that, and as well as add in some of those business visitations that town council had been completing in 22. On the very last page, we did just add in this, where does my Innisfil tax dollar go? So we did provide this at tax time as well, but just showing for every dollar of your taxes. So 26.8% goes to school taxes, and 0.2% goes towards seniors. And of the remaining funds of that dollar, this is where everything gets itemized out, right? So, you know, for every dollar, 19 cents is going to police and fire and protective services. 8 cents is going to the arena and pool. So just kind of outlining a little bit, just to kind of end it up. And then with a few nice pictures throughout it. We did create, or we did have these booklets specially printed, and I believe we printed around 100 that we will hand out in special circumstances. And then the PDF document will actually be put on our website, and we will share through social media, and as well have some printed out if people want to come pick it up. And as CIO Becker was saying, that we created the template, so we will likely be using the same template going forward, and now next year, hopefully with a June or so release date going forward.
All right, well, thank you. Job well done, everybody. Mr. Kowalchuk, thank you for all your work on this and all the staff. Anybody have any feedback? Councillor Heistad?
It's awesome. I love the money. Show people how the money's spent. That's great. I really like it. And the graphics were really good. I really appreciate that. So thanks. Good job, everybody.
Okay, anybody else? Councillor Harrison?
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. Yeah, great document. Just one question. General government, 20% of our budget. Can you just give me some examples of what falls within that bracket, that category?
Yes,
please?
Mayor Barclay through to Councillor Harrison. So for example, a portion of that could be, well, anything in this building, right? Like most of us here are all part of general government, so this building is covered under that, as well as council, any expenses for yourself, which include wages for staff, things like that, that's all included in there. We pay our insurance for the whole town out of that general government section, so that's kind of a big chunk. Things like carbon tax, all that kind of stuff comes out of that big chunk, right?
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, anybody else? No? Okay. So I will please have someone make the recommended motion.
I don't think we're done yet, Mayor
No, we'll
Barclay.
Oh, you're not
continue
done, I'm
on.
sorry, I
Yeah.
thought you were.
So just carry on, council, just going down into it's just a 2-pager, 3-pager. We didn't include your entire strat plan for your reference. However, these are the areas that it focuses in on. So I will read this through and just see, we're making sure we're currently achieving your expectation. Also, Thursday will either confirm that or take us on a different route based on your direction. So the first theme is a connected community that fosters a sense of belonging. The plan outlines 3 key goal areas. That is to increase recreational opportunities for residents and visitors, maximize the health, safety, and well-being of residents, and increase community spirit and supports arts and culture organizations. So the list of measures may not be all-inclusive. If something is missing, either council or administrative-wise, please let that be known. Some of the measures include, and this has been from the whole plan, not just the last quarter, but the measures include the Aquatic Center IPD, investment in playgrounds, additional skating surfaces, new outdoor arena, ball diamond development, school boards, joint use agreements, trail development, Dodds Lake dock. So that covers the recreational side. On the health and safety side, advancing the safe and well-being plan, the heliport final completion, RCMP annual performance plans and measures, the PACE transportation services, the review, support of the victim services program, Centennial Park public engagement, which was significant process, and just to make point of the record fire and protective services calls. And we haven't spoke clearly on Fire Smart, but there's a program that was introduced through parks in the Upper Aspen area just to help control some of that vegetation. Likely there'd be administrative conversation about Fire Smart, but there was some work being done in that area behind the scenes. In relation to community spirit and supports arts, events, programs developed internally, as Director Vickers mentioned, so we do some internal program, but also we are a key support of external events and programs. Land acknowledgement and community grants issued for, well, events, programs, but also for murals. So I'm not sure if anything comes to mind when you kind of rattle that off. If are we able to identify and, or, you know, Councillor, certainly is your expectations being met, and do we identify anything that's missing from this conversation?
Does anybody have any feedback? No? Carry on.
Okay, next theme, a robust and adaptable community with the key goal areas of strive for more diverse, affordable, accessible housing, foster a healthy economic development ecosystem. Some of the measurable areas includes Dodds Lake Area Structure Plan amendments, the Bella Vista ASP amendments, Southwest Residential Commercial Visioning, which is ongoing, MDP update, housing assessment draft, and Hazelwood housing development, with all 4 houses being sold officially. In more of the Dev, the ecosystem, industrial park development, agribusiness engagements, but development as well. The Chamber MOU, Energy Hub, the CED brand standards, the Renewable and entrepreneur streams, compilation of vacant land inventories, waste energy, public engagements, business visits, upcoming Hirsch-Reimer engagements, agritourism development strategy, labor market study, cultivating investment strategic framework. Same questions and comments. Are council's expectations being met, and is there anything missing from again, this quick conversation today?
Any feedback? No? Okay, carry on, I guess.
Respect for our environment, key areas, focus on Innisfil's energy sector while being good stewards of the natural environment, and develop a robust asset management plan and matrix. Measures the energy policy, transition accelerate training, the relationship we had with BEMA, Southwest Industrial Solar Exploration, Energy Hub, Partners for Climate Protection National Network, the radon test kits, Fortis lead study, FCM municipal grants, Green Fund Aquatic Center feasibility study, and of course the asset management plan that was reported to council recently, and that to staff. Also, just a mention of remember 5-6 years ago with the trees challenges we had in back lanes for equipment. That project was completed this year through enforcement, and sounds like almost 100% compliance with our engagement with the community. So that's a long-term project that has been completed. So same questions to you, council. Any feedback in this area?
Everybody's so quiet.
Yeah,
Two
I think
thumbs
it's
up from
Thursday.
Councillor
Thursday's
Heistad.
coming, I know.
Yeah, Thursday's coming, that's right, yeah.
So yeah, and lastly, provide strong leadership, provide excellence in all levels of the organization. Some of the measures include public engagements, increase of online service delivery, public complaints and requests for services system, new and updated policies and bylaws, health and safety culture, learning environment, community app, and annual reports. Also, just want to mention, of course, the full-time urban hen program. A good measure is also, we take for granted, but the financial audit and investment policy, and the forthcoming employee manual and the culture assessment, which was initiated today. And again, is there any comments from council?
Okay, I just have a question. Urban Hen, have we had an uptick in applications?
Mayor Barclay, we have not.
Okay,
We still have the same
interesting.
number
That's
of
interesting. Okay.
of applicants that we had before.
All right, interesting, thank you. Okay,
So the next section is the April priorities. So these are, we'd call them outdated. We'd like to more focus on the next page, but just to walk you through, in April, council's priorities included the Varma waste energy project, the government relations strategy, and tax policy. So the Varma waste, the Varma has been quite engaged. They're really mobile in the work they're doing. And the next page will focus a little bit differently, but we'll just stay here for now. Government relations strategy, we have not really advanced like a formal template document. I think there has been advocacy, government relations based on really quick hits or a short window of time relative, not really diving into, so really have not advanced your priority in this area. Council would certainly look for your feedback in this area. Certainly slated again to maintain this as your priority, if that's your desire. The next priority 3 is a tax policy review, and we'll let Erica speak to that on the next page. So also was the community safety and well-being plan, which has been initiated, likely to be completed Q1 of 2024 for stage 1, and likely have a budget proposal to you for 2024. So the CAO responsibility areas of the priorities is the waste to energy. It is an all-team approach, but certain parts of this is dedicated to the work of the CAO. Government relations strategy is geared to CAO, as well as, again, that energy hub is a collective team with the CAO in this case, pushing on some of the more support with the executive assistant on feedback from the rest of the team on community conversations. And we have a couple coming at the community in the next couple months. So going down in corporate services, up to April was the tax policy review, investment policy RFP, which was completed. The policy was completed. RFP will be released shortly. Aquatic Center project onto operational services. Again, more on the funding side and maybe the advocacy piece for funding. Capital project procurement, and Steve, certainly take your questions on any project updates, as well as the Southwest Industrial Park developments, solar farm, and of course, we've talked a bit and more come on asset management. In community services, of course, the housing piece with the study, MDP is big, and a few other areas in regards to housing, the Dodds Lake, of course. The energy retailer, that one we've been tasked, I think, to remove. Southwest Industrial Lands market, and of course engagement with Fortis. Climate sustainability, PCP work, which we recently heard that we achieved milestone number 1. Okay, and then, so if there's any questions on that, we'd like to go to the more updated version, and certainly need your feedback, but understanding we have strategy meeting coming on Thursday, but so as of today, maintaining waste to energy, government relations strategy. So I'd like to circle back with you on this one, Council. And then, of course, your directive for a tax policy review. So going down in specific tasks onto administration, community safety and well-being plan, it's been allocated to the manager of fire and protective services. Of course, I'm supporting that role. And then we do have team huddles once in a while, but it's just for feedback from Director of Community Services and team, but it's really largely the lead is on the manager of fire and protective services. The environmental waste to energy piece, just looking to build on the due diligence component of the project. So again, see Environment really successful on their work in their government engagements and stakeholders. Have not received recent update on potential waste collection customers, but want to make sure we have a nice solid understanding of the due diligence associated with the project. We do have some idea of emissions, but I'd like to make sure that's clear of what's coming into the community based on council's desire to move into a land lease or sale. So that's kind of a focus taken on. I'd like to just gather some of that work for your consideration and understanding. It'd help with your dialogue with the community too. Also now into the government relations strategy, and certainly looking for your feedback in this area. And again, community conversation. I'll just take a breath there, Council, on the immediate priorities. We'll go down into the other layers here in a few minutes. Is there any immediate comments, thoughts, concerns? Speed, lack of speed?
Anyone? Everybody's happy? Okay, everybody's happy. All right.
Now going to corporate services, I'll let the director speak to these priority areas.
Thank you. So the first one on my list is the tax policy review. So administration, myself, will be developing a tax policy for council consideration. The scope will include an outline of the Municipal Government Act and the legislative requirements and opportunities that council could apply to the town of Innisfil tax policy framework. Now, this policy is going to be one of the biggest, this is the biggest policy you have. It creates the most revenue for the town, and it's the most important. So I have been working with our assessors currently just to get all the required lists and documents out, and then we'll go from there. I am hoping still to have it for just before the tax bylaw will be passed next year, that this can be presented to council. Right now, my biggest priority is the 2024 budget. So the budget process is a critical component of the town's financial management. Administration has started planning and coordination process within each department. So all those meetings have already been happening and planning has been happening. So this process involves identifying goals and objectives, estimating costs, prioritizing programs and services based on available funding, preparing a budget proposal that outlines funding requirements, reviewing proposals for alignment with strategic plans and budget priorities, and then consolidating departmental budgets into one overall budget for council to review, provide feedback, and approve. So we did book the budget deliberation days, so that will be happening November 21st to 23rd, with the eventual passing to happen on December 11th. Okay, so the next priority for myself is the Clean Energy Improvement Program. So the town of Innisfil continues to strive for energy efficiencies for us as a municipality as well as for our residents. So the Clean Energy Improvement Program, or known as CEIP, is Alberta's innovative financing tool that enables residential and commercial property owners to pay for energy efficiencies and renewable energy upgrades. The program gives property owners access to flexible long-term financing through their municipality. Unlike a traditional loan, repayment is facilitated by a tax added to the property's tax bill. So this also then, if you buy it, upgrade your home and then sell it, it stays with the property, and so does the loan payment. So you're not required to do that if you sell your house, right? We do wish to have the program implemented no later than the third quarter of next year. There will be a few processes that have to come to council first. We do need a bylaw to set this whole process in motion primarily first, and then we can go on next steps after that. Another thing is just continual policy and bylaw updates. So I did list quite a few different policies or bylaws that we're working on right now. So for example, so we can just go through them all. So the budget and surplus policies have both been completed, and they are slated to come to council on the October 3rd, I believe, A&P meeting for your guys' initial review of it. The reserves policy is done, and I'm just kind of finalizing the items, working with the other directors, because it does get linked up to the 10-year capital plan. So we're just kind of linking those things together now. So that should be coming to you probably not next Monday. It'll probably be coming that first council meeting in October. The taxi bylaw, we actually just received feedback from the lawyers this morning. So that will actually be coming next Monday for your guys' review and approval, hopefully as well. Along with that will then come the rates and fees bylaw will have to come as well. So all the other ones, so the council procedure bylaw, we're working on it right now. The bylaw officer bylaw, the community naming policy, we do have a bunch of feedback already, or not feedback, I guess, research that we conducted from other municipalities. So that will be coming sometime in October. The volunteer policy, we haven't started developing yet. We're going to develop it, and we hope to have it in November or December in front of you guys for approval. The employee policy, we're just finishing out the last couple, and we'll get to actually roll that out shortly within the next couple of weeks as well. We will likely be bringing something to council. There will be some policies that council need to approve, and you'll be given like a table of contents of all the different policies that we've created. The traffic bylaw is just finishing up. It's we've kind of have a draft done, and we're just finishing up all the little odds and ends, and then that will be coming to you as well. The Clean Energy Improvement bylaw we did add on there, but that will be in 2024 to be approved, as well as the records management bylaw. It is due for an update, and that will be coming in the first or second quarter of 2024. So most of those policies should come before the end of this year, with just a few coming early next year. And that's all for me.
So on the operational
Sorry,
services side.
Director Kennedy,
Yeah,
Councillor
Just,
Harrison has a question.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Just a quick question through to Director. Tax review policy, are you looking at anything with vacant residential land at a separate mill rate? Would that be part of that review?
Yes, Mayor Barclay through to Councillor Harrison. So yes, that is exactly one of those items that we'll be tagging as an item to bring forward for council's discussion that we'll be tagging that for sure, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, mine will be pretty short. Aquatic Center project, it's on hold. Completed that funding strategy for everybody, second quarter. Capital projects, 4 of the 8 have been completed. We have a number of projects on the go right now. It's really busy construction time right now. Everything seemed to got held till August, September this year for us for some reason, but weather's holding quite well for us, so everything appears to be on schedule and should be able to get completed still. Southwest Industrial Park, continue on with the surface works, with shallow utilities slated for October, so it is moving along quite well as well. Southwest Industrial Solar Farm, we just met with them today on an update. We should have a package from Green Cat Renewables in regards to an updated cost as well as where all of the studies are for the AUC application. But we'll be coming back to council with that here shortly within the next couple of weeks on an update. Asset management, we did complete the update for council. So we will be looking to move forward with additional plans as well as identifying climate change frameworks for each class. Within this, we also continue to work and update our 5- and 10-year capital plans for all the departments within this structure. So that's some of the stuff we have going on.
Director Kennedy, with the solar project, once you have the information from Green Cat, like, would that be something that we would potentially submit to AUC? Like, and is there a fee that goes along with that application to AUC, or?
Yeah, so one of the items that you have to do prior to submission is a consultation. But what we were hoping to do with the plan is bring forward to you all of the items that we have, anything outstanding, anything risk, as well as then the cost. Before we go to consultation, I think it's important probably to have that in front of you. You know, are we planning to move forward with it, all that stuff, and then do the consultation and then do the application in. As well, there's a number of studies that Fortis needs to do. They need to do their detailed design study. That's still in the works. As well as Alta Links. They have 2 projects they need to complete that are in the works as well, which likely aren't going to be done till December anyway. So we are probably looking at a January, February submission regardless. So there was no big rush in the consultation. We thought we'd get the information to you first and then talk about budget.
That's consultation with the community?
Yes.
Like we did with the elemental. Okay, no,
Yep.
Good, thank you. Councillor Harrison?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay, through to Director. And it's regarding the industrial park development. I understand there was some water issues there. Have those been corralled? And is that over budget? Like, is that going to cost us more money in the end, or?
We're still within the 10% budget or contingency. We have managed it. So yeah, it was a high water level that we've got an issue with. We're maintaining it and managing it. So everything is going well and still within that contingency.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So the first sort of focus area for community services is on housing. So the municipal development plan update continues. We're a little bit behind schedule on that process, just with some staff changeover, tying up Manager Shaw's and my time throughout this summer. But we're getting back on track there. The housing assessment draft has been to council, is currently being circulated through committees, and will be coming back for final adoption, and then allow us to look at sort of some short-term housing actions coming out of that for the next couple of years. That plan identifies looking at vacant and derelict properties, increasing focus on infill development and accessory dwelling units, as well as finalizing sort of next steps and where we want to go with the southwest residential area. As CAO Becker mentioned, the 4 houses in Hazelwood now are all sold. So whether there's any further projects that we want to look at in that respect as well. The Southwest Industrial Land Sales, so looking to increase focus there, getting MOUs or leases in place with sort of our two that we've been working with for a considerable period of time. The subdivision should be finalized and registered here in the next, I'll say by November, which will make it easier to go a little bit more aggressively in terms of marketing as well. The utilities and the roads will be constructed, so possession is essentially a lot sooner than when we're marketing it sort of a year and a half in advance. On the sustainability climate energy front, continuing to work with the asset management climate cohort, that'll be wrapping up here this month, and then moving on to the next milestones with the PCP program, as well as continuing on those Energy Hub activities. And then with ECDEV, the Cultivating Investment Project will be continuing. That should be wrapped up in the first quarter of 2024, working with the CAO and executive assistant on the speaker series, as well as other power of place actions as we move into the next year.
Okay, thank you. Director Jenkins, or Director Kennedy, I guess, or not Kennedy, Director Vickers for budget. Will you bring us a breakdown or like a net profit on the 4 houses? And because that will help with decision-making going forward. I know it's maybe somewhat difficult to value the land with how we ended up with it, but.
Absolutely. Once all the invoices come in and we've paid all the last payments, we can definitely bring down an accounting for the 4 homes.
Yeah, just a budget would be fine. Yeah,
Absolutely.
sure, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, you're all good. Everybody passed.
Great. So again, understanding that these could change to whatever council directs as of Thursday. So this next section, I'm going to lead it into Director Kennedy in a sec here. So through his leadership and working with the rest of the team, I wanted to give council some detail and forecast of the capital forecast. I thought the staff did a great job to anticipate, to help council kind of identify visually of what's funded, what isn't funded, and what's, just what is that impact, the financial condition of the town ultimately. And again, really important as you lead into strategy and then budget forthcoming as well. So Director Kennedy, you want to speak to this?
Sure. So we have been working on kind of expanding and continuing to grow our 10-year capital. So we did come to you back in 2020 when we did our state of infrastructure report. We had a 10-year plan in there. Really, this is just growing on that. At that time, all we had really was roads, wastewater, parks. We didn't include a lot of the community services items in that plan. So this really has now evolved into all the departments. We're still working. We have a bit of administration side there, but we've got fire, protective services, as well as all the community services. Kind of highlighting the community services one. So these are based on the recent assessments that have been done on the buildings. So these are out of the recommendations that were brought on those reports. They provided us with a 10-year, 20-year, probably even, maintenance of those facilities. And it's really something that we've never accounted for in the past. So as far as I know, even prior to me, it was never put in front of council as to like how are we maintaining our buildings, how does that look in the forecast. So really what this is just it went right from the reports and it just kind of showed you a real shot on what have we not. So in the past, like typically, community services was quite low. So now we're over $1 million. $1 million probably in the next 2 or 3 years. And then you can see 2029, 2030, there's the big hits. There's the need for a new roof. There's the need for a lot of mechanical upgrades and stuff like that. So it really gives you a good insight on 6 years down the road, we need a lot of money to put forward. And then we tried to include the unfunded projects that we've talked about. Obviously, Aquatic Center, the need for arena dressing room expansions, the solar farm, Dodge Lake parking lot, the dog park, Highway 54 intersection, the cemetery landfill, all items that haven't really been budgeted for, but we've done a lot of work on those. So, as Director Vickers had mentioned, so we have linked all of this into our reserves now and how those are going to affect. So we'll be able to provide you that on Thursday. How this type of funding, it looks in regards to our reserves. We weren't able to put it on at this time, but we'll have that for you on Thursday and how that really correlates to the funding we have available. So,
Councillor Bates?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. So how and when, like the list of unfunded projects, I'm sure there's all kinds of more. Do they evolve at strat plan time or just when they come up, or?
I think that's like, we'll be getting into that in budget time. Like, and to be fair, yeah, you don't have, like, how does the reserves correlate to this? So we'll have that for you on Thursday, because then it gives you a better picture too on what can when can the unfunded projects be looked at, and how does that affect those reserves?
Or how do new ones get on the list, I guess is
Exactly.
my question, because
Yep.
like, I don't remember I certainly remember us discussing the arena dressing rooms, but I don't remember them being a repetitive hot topic. We've had, like, the second Hazelwood access, there's, it's come up here again recently, even with the open house remote fire emergency. Is that the one that's the 900,000 out there on 2033? Down, future industrial and residential land. There's all kinds of things come to my mind that.
I think what we definitely don't have anything in regards to fire protective services. What we did include in here is in order to help identify those is a master plan in order to identify, because it's hard to really answer any questions until we have that for you. So we've shown those as unfunded projects. Same with rec and open spaces master plan, needing to be looked at in order to identify ball diamonds and rec and all those questions that we have as well.
So I'm not sure I got an answer. Like, so this Thursday, if we want to say Hazelwood access, that needs to be looked at, or the remote fire, that we had brought up as an objection to our last development. And some of these things, like, so we just bring them up and.
Mayor Barclay, to Councillor Bates, now, like even now, this helps, like, so you're sharing kind of what's in your realm, but hey, this should be identified, and other councils members will have the same kind of thought process. Right. Thursday is a good start of where we need to go. We also want to talk about asset management and the reserves and funding and the lack of funding, even to maintain our current infrastructure. Are we on target? Do we have financing capabilities to do that, or are we underfunded? Where do you want to sit on your asset management plan? Do you want to be C pluses, B pluses, or is it D okay? So, and what is the impact, and what we think as administration where you may want to consider. But it's hard to do anything without a funding model.
Yep.
But I think this is a good start, but Thursday also is a good start for you to start getting into those finer details. From my perspective, first 2 years of council, you really drove vision. I think we supported that, but I think you're in the place now with your scar tissue and experience that you can certainly get into those finer conversations.
Okay, and so then the 2033 line, then there is a number there of 900,000 under fire. Is that
That is, that's an upgrade to engine one.
okay? And do we perceive in 10 years that we need to be planning for school or site or?
I think that's a good question, because if we're driving development, if Dawes Lake area is pushing development, we're getting those indicators, then that's gonna push our strategic focus. Now we need road, we need school. So yeah, those priorities will change based on the level of development that we experience.
Okay, lots for Thursday.
It is interesting, one of the resolutions for Alberta Munis this year is for the province to develop school sites as opposed to municipalities. So I think that will be an interesting discussion. It makes sense that, you know, why that's downloaded onto us, but I.
It's good trade for some of the other.
Yeah, so I don't know, would you like us to throw some things out right now, like what Councillor Bates just said? Maybe a road access out to the C&E. Maybe we've talked about that for a few years now, the need for that in the future sometime. Should that go on a potential list or wait till Thursday?
No, if council wishes to discuss now, I think, may want to just be part of the education component and knowing that for additional conversations need to happen, but yeah, I think any conversation is beneficial.
Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Bates? And because we talked about it last term too, and how many houses until we max out the one exit. And
the ones that come to mind, again, I haven't put a lot of thought into it, but definitely have heard the Hazelwood access. I don't know how many times. I would hope by then, if somewhere through this, we'll be looking for some more industrial land. Maybe some future residential land if we're still in the business, and that seems to be the way we go back and forth. And somewhere down the road, emergency services on the current other side of the tracks versus where they are. I do believe in 10 years that's gonna become inside of 10 years. Those are some that come to mind now. Trying to think a lot more before Thursday. Thank you.
Councillor Wing?
Thank you. Mayor Barclay, through to Director Vickers, for the purpose of Thursday, would it be possible to get the 2023 budget on here as well, so that we've got something to look back as a comparator, please? That would be great. And then, like, on a really big piece of paper? All those little numbers. And then I would just ask that if we could add to that unfunded project list, the field house / walking track.
Councillor Heistad?
I agree with everything that Councillor Wing said, the big piece of paper, but the walking track thing is one of those things I did bring up a few weeks ago, and I think that it could complement our future potential pool and all those items. Thanks.
So just on the arena dressing room expansion is more exposed to you through administration, and I think the driver I think Director Jenkins has some logic to it. My view goes on to the female dressing room, which is not equipped with water or a washroom. So are we best serving all our patrons? And then, of course, the use is also practicality of the use of the facilities with limited space to accommodate larger functions.
Do you want more detail there? Yeah, I guess it's been an ongoing, as well as the requests from Minor Ball to be able to access dressing rooms from the outside. So we have had some preliminary drawings done just to envision what could happen there. The dollar value in there is actually just what Steve and I think it might cost. They're gonna come back with something more detailed, but again, yeah, the limitations with the male and female dressing rooms, as well as moving up the age categories that they're playing half ice. So we end up with potentially 4 teams on both ice surfaces at one time during tournaments and things. So essentially teams are sharing dressing rooms right up to the U9 age group, which is challenging because then you have the next group that are coming into play and you have no dressing rooms essentially for them. So yeah, seems to be a trend again, and we have a very limited space for ref rooms or for referees. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so just some thoughts, some ideas there leading into your Thursday and then into budget. So obviously it does create, I guess, some understanding of a forecast. Again, posing the question at some point on just where do you want to sit based on the information you have on the asset management plan. And when you see that reserves piece, that'll be a question come at you. Where do you want to play within these grades of our infrastructure?
It's all difficult too when you don't know what LGFF is going to be going forward as of next year, right? We don't know what the funding is going to be, so.
And the last document, Council, is the Red Deer County Economic Development Strategy, and they developed excuse me, a little stutter there, 3 themes. Theme 1 being economic development and regional collaboration, a shared growth management approach. Theme 2 being local and global industry opportunities, Central Alberta as a technology and logistics cluster, and theme 3 being destination developments with tourism, major events, and screen media industries. So just FYI, as you can maybe relate to this into your own vision for Innisfail and area.
All right. Anybody have anything else to add? If not, I will have somebody make the recommended motion, please. Councillor Wing.
Mayor Barclay, I would move that council accept the September 18th, 2023 strategic plan and priorities update as information.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, carried. That's good work. Thanks for all that. And we will move into upcoming events. There they go. Lot to scroll through.
So I have one question.
Yes.
Madam Mayor. The municipal development, I think we got the agenda as a 4 o'clock meeting. Oh, sorry, I looked earlier, it was 3, and so I think we have a citizen member that's both municipal development and council remuneration, so I'm not sure if he'll have difficulty, but it's a busy day. Well, and I think MPC is non-existent, right, for that? Right, there's no MPC, correct? I'm looking around here.
Okay, I'll just have somebody make a motion that we accept the upcoming events as information, please. Councillor Messaros.
I'll move that we accept the upcoming events as information. Thank you.
All in favor? Okay, carried. And we will go into correspondence and information. This grant here for the social prescribing, $292,000 that McMahon got, so that's good news for them to hire a couple of positions. Okay, I'll just have somebody make a motion that we accept this as information. Councillor Bates.
I move that we accept the correspondence for information.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried. And we will move into roundtable, committee reports, et cetera. We'll start with Councillor Harrison today.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I attended one event last week, and it was the fall registration night. A great event. I think there was a great turnout. I didn't get past the splitting of the hamburgers. And when I got home, my wife commented on how nice I smelled. I smelled like Burger King. So it was, I think, a well-attended event, and it was a lot of fun. So that's about all I did last week. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wing.
Better a Burger King than, you know. Yeah, so I also enjoyed helping out with the hamburger crew last Tuesday evening at the fall information and registration night. And I joined Manager Shaw and town staff at the Municipal Development Plan information booth for about an hour as well. Got some interesting feedback from people. Last Thursday, I attended my first in-person meeting of the Parkland Regional Library Board. For the last 2 years, it's been all on Zoom, so it was kind of nice to be able to put some faces to voices, and yeah, it was a good meeting. And also, my family, along with many of you, thoroughly enjoyed the past weekend's Harvest Festival. Of course, the weather was perfect, and just everything was great about it. So thanks for and congratulations to the organizing team. Job well done. And this week sees meetings with MDP Advisory Committee and a full day of strategic planning.
All right, thank you. Councillor Bates.
I too participated in registration night and was very impressed with the heat that the mayor managed to generate in her barbecue. I don't know, that was quite a highlight. I attended the Water Commission, and they did finalize that their budget dates, which I will be involved in, are October 11th and 25th. I think I gave those out last week. One of the things that came out in their meeting, they did make their presentation to the Olds Council, similar to the Sewer Commission that was presented to us. And I expressed my jealousy because I'd been pushing all along, and I understand with a late email that I got today that we may have a date. So they're going to come to Innisfail next, and that I look forward to them being able to present to you, and you understand the size of that commission and the infrastructure and all that sort of thing. As they've looked at budgets, they're already seeing some numbers, you know, that I just found it interesting. I heard them tossed around. Their insurance is going up 8%. Benefits are going up 8 to 10%. You know, that's just, and if that's happening to them, it's happening to everybody that has benefits, you know, whether it's a small business or whatever. So those are all. I did make a couple of brief appearances at the Harvest Festival. And this week, MDP, strat planning, and I don't know if I'll make the doors open thing. I've got some family things going on that Saturday. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Councillor Messaros.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I did attend a couple of meetings while I was away for, I attended for FCM, and one of them was on the Rural Forum, and then the second one was the Committee of the Whole, the orientation meeting, and the thing that they're talking most about right now is the municipal growth framework and strategizing around what kind of tools we can think about using, or a lot of talk around the strategy for moving forward with that, for the development of that framework. So it was really good to be able to attend those two meetings. And yeah, this week, the strat planning on Thursday.
All right, Thank you. And Councillor Heistad?
Thanks. So anything operational and that, like I was gonna ask about walking trails and stuff, but I can bring those up on Thursday as to what our needs and wants are of the community. I want to commend Director Kennedy. I forgot your last name for a second. The back alleys are looking great near my side of the town. Look good. We got a new mural coming into town on the theater wall, the east wall, which will be done by Ryan Willert. The welcoming committee is going to be doing that. Well, they worked with him on that, in conjunction on that. The weekend was awesome. I did the Terry Fox run. I did stop by the festival, Harvest Festival, a couple times, and I did a stroll today, and I saw that new dock. It looks pretty cool down at Dodds Lake. And unfortunately I missed the registration night. I was at an investment meeting in Edmonton for Alberta municipalities, and then my last one is there's a cougar in town, but not with 4 legs. That's what I heard online. So big one. So saw the picture. So that's it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bates?
I have a question for Councillor Heistad. Did you actually run in the Terry Fox run?
I participated. I walked 5K. With the route is a 5K route.
Will you be turning in some funds to?
Did I? No, I just made it my own personal donation.
Oh, because I was going to add to it, but
Okay.
I'll send one in.
Send one to Patrick,
Yeah.
please.
No, I do. I just thought I'd put it in for you.
Oh, that's nice of you. Oh, where's Johnny? You could write on that. Gavin and Jason getting along. No, it was good. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Well, last week I attended the Mayor's South Central group down in Drumheller, and then came back to the fall registration night, and on the weekend hung around the Harvest Fest a little bit, so that's about it. I think we will have a motion now to go in camera, please. Councillor Messaros?
I'll move that we go in camera.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?